Operation Raptor is about to begin. Law enforcement agencies from 10 countries have spent months coordinating what will become the largest dark web takedown in history. The targets are scattered across continents. Kingpins who believe their digital empires are untouchable. They're about to learn otherwise. In just 48 hours, 270 arrests will shatter criminal networks that have operated in the shadows for years. Over $200 million in assets will be seized, along with enough fentanyl to kill millions. But this is just the latest victory in a war that's been raging since the internet's darkest corners first became havens for crime. The dark web represents humanity's greatest digital paradox. Originally designed to protect dissidents and whistleblowers from authoritarian regimes, it has evolved into something far more sinister. Here, in networks hidden beneath layers of encryption and anonymity, criminal empires flourish. Drug cartels move billions in narcotics, arms dealers peddle military-grade weapons, and human traffickers auction lives. At the center of this digital underworld sit the Kingpins, masterminds who've built vast criminal enterprises without ever meeting their customers face to face. These are not your typical street dealers or traditional crime bosses. They're tech-savvy entrepreneurs who understand that the future of organized crime lies in ones and zeros rather than back-alley handshakes. They speak in code, transact in cryptocurrency, and hide behind layers of digital armor that would make government agencies jealous. For years, they operated with near impunity, believing themselves beyond the reach of law enforcement. They were wrong. The hunt for these digital crime lords represents the most sophisticated game of cat and mouse in human history. On one side stand criminal networks that leverage cutting-edge technology to evade detection. On the other, law enforcement agencies that have evolved from beat cops to cyber warriors capable of penetrating the most secure networks on Earth. The stakes couldn't be higher. Billions of dollars in criminal proceeds, countless lives destroyed by illegal drugs, and the very question of whether justice can prevail in the digital age. Consider the scale of what we're dealing with. A single dark web marketplace can process more illegal transactions in a month than most traditional criminal organizations handle in years. These platforms operate like twisted versions of Amazon, complete with customer reviews, vendor ratings, and sophisticated logistics networks. Users browse catalogs of illegal goods as easily as shopping for books or electronics. The only difference is that instead of next-day delivery, they're receiving packages filled with lethal substances or stolen identities. The criminals behind these operations have mastered the art of digital invisibility. They use encrypted messaging services that promise absolute security, route their communications through multiple countries to obscure their locations, and employ cryptocurrencies specifically designed to hide money trails. Some have never left their home countries yet command global criminal enterprises worth hundreds of millions of dollars. They live double lives, respectable citizens by day, digital crime lords by night, but law enforcement has been watching, learning, and adapting. What started as frustrated investigators chasing digital ghosts has evolved into highly sophisticated operations involving multiple agencies across continents. The tools at their disposal would have seemed like science fiction just a decade ago. Advanced cryptocurrency tracking software can follow digital money through dozens of transactions and wallet addresses. Artificial intelligence analyzes communication patterns to identify suspects even when they use multiple aliases. International databases share intelligence in real time, allowing agencies to coordinate operations across time zones and jurisdictions. The breakthrough came when investigators realized they needed to think like their targets. Instead of trying to break encryption or bypass security measures, they learned to exploit human error and technological overconfidence. Criminals might use the most secure networks available, but they still make mistakes, reusing passwords, clicking on malicious links, or trusting the wrong people. These seemingly minor lapses create opportunities for law enforcement to infiltrate networks and gather intelligence. Perhaps the most devastating weapon in the law enforcement arsenal has been their ability to turn the criminals' own tools against them. Encrypted messaging services that promised absolute security have become gold mines of intelligence when properly penetrated. Platforms trusted by thousands of criminals worldwide have been secretly monitored for months, generating evidence that will fuel prosecutions for years to come. The very technology meant to protect these digital kingpins has become their downfall. The psychological pressure of operating in this environment cannot be understated. These criminals live in constant fear of discovery, never knowing if their next login will be their last as free individuals. Some have developed elaborate security protocols that would impress cybersecurity professionals. Others have cracked under the stress, making fatal errors that expose not just themselves but entire networks of associates. The paranoia is justified. Law enforcement agencies have demonstrated repeatedly that no digital hiding place is permanent. International cooperation has transformed from a nice-to-have into an absolute necessity. Modern dark web operations span multiple countries and jurisdictions, requiring unprecedented coordination between agencies that historically struggled to share information. Today's investigations routinely involve the FBI working alongside Europol, with support from agencies in Asia, South America, and beyond. Language barriers, legal differences, and time zone challenges have been overcome through dedicated task forces and shared intelligence platforms. The financial impact of these operations extends far beyond simple asset seizures. Each takedown disrupts supply chains, destroys trust between criminals, and forces entire networks to rebuild from scratch. The psychological warfare aspect cannot be ignored. Every arrest sends a message that the dark web is not the safe haven criminals believed it to be. Some kingpins have simply disappeared, shutting down their operations and vanishing into digital obscurity rather than risk capture. But for every network dismantled, new ones emerge to fill the void. The demand for illegal goods and services hasn't diminished, and ambitious criminals continue to believe they can outsmart law enforcement. The hunt continues, with both sides constantly evolving their tactics and technology. What emerges is a perpetual arms race between criminal innovation and law enforcement adaptation, played out across servers and networks that span the globe. The case that changed everything began with a single email address discovered in metadata. Alexandre Cazes thought he had covered his tracks when he created AlphaBay, but one small mistake in the platform's early days would eventually cost him everything. An anonymous tipster had saved one of those first welcome emails, preserving evidence that would crack open the largest dark web marketplace the world had ever seen. The email address pimp_alex_91@hotmail.com became the thread that unraveled a multi-million-dollar criminal empire. What investigators traced the email through social media platforms followed was a masterclass in digital detective work, dating profiles, and technology forums. Each breadcrumb led deeper into the life of a man who believed himself untouchable. They discovered his real name, his location in Bangkok, his luxurious lifestyle funded by criminal proceeds. For months, agents watched as Cazes drove his Lamborghini through the streets of Thailand, completely unaware that his every move was being documented. The operation to take down AlphaBay required precision timing and international coordination. Authorities needed Cazes to leave his house voluntarily, ensuring his computer remained unlocked and accessible. The solution was elegant in its simplicity: a staged car accident at his front gate. When the Toyota Camry crashed into his property, Cazes did exactly what investigators hoped. He ran outside to see what happened, leaving behind his laptop still logged into the AlphaBay servers. Within minutes, agents had everything they needed: password files, server access, financial records, the entire architecture of a criminal empire laid bare on a computer screen. Cazes had built something that processed over $1 billion in illegal transactions, serving hundreds of thousands of users worldwide. His platform wasn't just selling drugs, it was facilitating the trade of weapons, stolen data, counterfeit documents, and malware on an industrial scale. The psychological toll of operating at this level became evident in Cazes' final days. Just 1 week after his arrest, he was found dead in his Thai prison cell, having taken his own life rather than face extradition and a potential death sentence in the United States. The king of the dark web had fallen, but his story revealed the immense pressure these digital criminals face when their carefully constructed worlds begin to collapse. But law enforcement had learned to think several steps ahead. Even as AlphaBay went dark, authorities were implementing Operation Bayonet, a sophisticated deception that would ensnare thousands more criminals. Dutch investigators had simultaneously taken control of Hansa Market, another major dark web platform. When AlphaBay users fled to what they believed was a safe alternative, they were actually walking into a law enforcement honeypot. For weeks, authorities monitored every transaction, every message, every criminal connection made on Hansa Market. Users had no idea their supposed sanctuary was actually a police operation. When the trap finally closed, the intelligence gathered led to arrests across 3 continents and provided evidence that would fuel prosecutions for years to come. It was criminal psychology turned inside out, using the very migration patterns of dark web users against them. The success of these operations spawned a new generation of investigative techniques. Agencies began developing capabilities that seemed almost supernatural in their scope and precision. Advanced analytics could identify patterns in communication that revealed criminal networks even when individuals used multiple aliases and encryption. Cryptocurrency tracking software evolved to follow digital money through increasingly complex laundering schemes, making it nearly impossible for criminals to truly anonymize their profits. The impact rippled through the criminal underworld in ways that extended far beyond simple arrests and seizures. Trust, the fundamental currency of illegal enterprises, began to evaporate. How could criminals be sure their encrypted messaging wasn't being monitored? How could they know their chosen marketplace wasn't a law enforcement operation? The paranoia became a weapon itself, making it harder for criminal networks to form and operate efficiently. Recent operations have demonstrated just how sophisticated this digital warfare has become. When investigators took down the Matrix encrypted messaging platform, they didn't just arrest users, they intercepted and decrypted over 2 million messages in 33 languages. The intelligence gathered painted a comprehensive picture of international criminal networks that would have been impossible to assemble through traditional investigative methods. The arrest of Rui Xianglin at John F. Kennedy International Airport exemplified how global this hunt has become. The Taiwanese operator of Incognito Market thought he could orchestrate a $100 million drug trafficking operation from overseas, then execute an exit scam to extort his own vendors. Instead, he found himself in handcuffs the moment he stepped onto American soil, demonstrating that distance provides no protection when multiple agencies coordinate their efforts. These cases reveal a fundamental shift in how organized crime operates and how law enforcement responds. The old model of territorial crime families and local jurisdictions has given way to global networks that can only be combated through equally global cooperation. Modern kingpins might never leave their home countries, but their digital empires span continents, requiring investigation techniques that match their scope and ambition. The psychological profiles of these digital crime lords often reveal individuals living extraordinary double lives. By day, they might appear as ordinary citizens, freelance programmers, or small business owners. By night, they command vast criminal enterprises worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The cognitive dissonance required to maintain such an existence eventually becomes unsustainable, leading to the kinds of operational security failures that law enforcement has learned to exploit. The hunt for the world's top dark web kingpins reveals a fundamental truth about our digital age. No one is truly untouchable, no matter how sophisticated their technology or how carefully they craft their anonymity. From Alexandre Cazeres driving his Lamborghini through Bangkok streets to Rui Xianglin walking into an airport trap, these stories demonstrate that human error and law enforcement persistence eventually converge in decisive moments. What we're witnessing is more than just a series of arrests and takedowns. It's the evolution of justice itself, adapting to meet the challenges of crimes that exist purely in digital spaces. The agencies pursuing these criminals have transformed from traditional investigators into cyber warriors capable of penetrating the most secure networks on Earth. They've learned to think like their targets, to exploit the very technologies meant to protect criminal enterprises, and to coordinate across continents with unprecedented precision. But perhaps the most striking revelation is how these digital empires, for all their technological sophistication, ultimately collapse due to the same human weaknesses that have always brought down criminal organizations. Pride, greed, carelessness, and the psychological pressure of living double lives create the cracks that law enforcement exploits. The dark web promised anonymity, but it couldn't eliminate the human element that makes every criminal vulnerable. The war continues, with new kingpins rising to replace those who fall, each believing they can succeed where others failed. Yet with each operation, each arrest, each network dismantled, the message becomes clearer. The shadows are not as deep as they once seemed, and justice has learned to see in the dark.